This is the second part of my lecture in conflicts and how to deal with them. If you are a student of pedagogy, to deal with social interaction with kids and other people, but it can also be useful as a parent and somebody who can use it in other type of relations as well. In this second part, it's about how you deal with conflicts, especially focused on where you're dealing with kids and teenagers. And this way is based on model developed and talked about by a guy called Peter Wick in a classic book from the 70s, 80s, but still very much in several places because of the way it really gets around to deal with these conflicts in a very useful manner. So it's based on praxis experience, and that what works seems to be a good way to do things. And just to repeat from the beginning, I was talking about what conflicts are. They are a disagreement between people inside them or between them that arises tensions and that can lead to what's called to conflict. So it's the arousal of tension in yourself or between you and somebody else. And conflicts have different type. They can be instrumental, like how to do things, and they can be based on resources, who should have what and who should have access to what kind of resources and use them, and who should get the grants and so on. The third one is values. What kind of tradition or way do you want it, or does the society want, or the people around you want, and do we agree on that? And the fourth one is a personal conflict that's related to the person, him or herself, because of some private or public tension that you have with this person or this person have with you. And I talked also about how to use assertive language, the language of the giraffe or the language of the dolphin, to avoid escalation and to avoid fight or flight or freeze situations in the way you deal with conflicts. And that was general, that was open side. And we had some cases when I worked with the students, and we had a lot of fun of it because they had to deal with these cases and how to answer them, and they had to stand up and relate to how they were answering. We had a lot of fun and talk and enjoyment out of it. That's how social interaction can be very fulfilling when you are with other groups of people. The other side of this is focusing directly, if you are dealing with kids and teenagers, how you deal with conflicts. And this is what I'm going to go through right now. They say there are three type of behavior conflict that you need to be aware of. The first one is the effect behavior, and the second one is the border seeking, immature behavior, and the third one is crisis behavior. And so, what do they mean? The effect behavior is when a kid or a teenager is trying to get an effect out something. They want the attention, the contact, the accept, the disturbance of the others in that special situation. So they have learned to catch that attention, but in a way that disturbs other or destroys something or becomes a moment of irritation. It can be this boy wants to get the attention of the girl and shows that he's the cool guy, and so he does it by annoying everyone around him and putting himself in a situation where he will get the required effect of the reaction of the authority around him or the others, but at the same time win the sympathy and the liking of that girl. That's what he thinks. It can be a way of giving attention to himself as an important person who has been overseen in class or in the situation he's standing in, and so on. So often it is seen as a requirement or a frustration. So the effect behavior is mostly because this person is frustrated over something and wants to show it, doesn't know how, is not good using language, then the behavior becomes the language. Or maybe this person has a need or a request and not able to put it through, and so by making disturbance and annoyance, maybe can get to what he or she wants, or at least avoid it. Many kids who do not like school as it is, and maybe see that, well, I'm not going to be a mathematician, I'm not going to be an English teacher, so what the heck do I need all this for? And so they turn their attention to something else. And if they are not left alone with that, they will maybe be annoying because you are going against their needs of not giving attention to what you want or the school wants. And when the kid gets his or her will out of it, or that required effect, it's like the behavior disappears. So when that boy got the attention of the girl, she smiled at him. He didn't need to do it anymore. That's all. Or he got his will of leaving class. I had pupils who sometimes made annoyance because they want to leave class for something and they were not allowed to, or the others would not let them do it, or maybe they were put in a group they did not like to be in. And so because everyone was forced to be in the group and he had or she had to be there as well, they go on and make this affect behavior that takes them out of the class and makes everything go their way anyway. And so they get the attention maybe, and some kids they go so far that seeing even the authorities disgrace of them as a reward. Some attention is better than non-attention, as they say. So if a kid is really overseen or looked at as problematic, and well, uh, there is no way of showing it in a good way, well, let me escalate the bad way of getting attention. At least the others will be looking at me for 5 or 10 whole seconds and talking about me afterwards. And that's a way of manifesting myself instead of just being the one who is overseen and not looked at all. So that's the first type that has been studied and talked about, is the effect behavior. The second one uh, is the border seeking attention. And that border seeking attention is that the kid is impulsive, it's acting without thinking, it has a very low level of frustration. So it will react not according to its age. You can have a kid who is 10 or 11 and acting like a 3, 4 year, 5 year old kid who just need the things here and now and will cry if he doesn't get them, or make trouble if he doesn't get what he wants. It can be that the kid has the lack of competences to deal with the situation. So the kid has not mastered or learned how to act in a given situation, and so it will lash out and react impulsively with no regard to the surroundings. So it's like when you don't want anything anymore, you just rise up and go, not giving any attention to everybody else and what you're disturbing on your way. And that's how this kid will react. It's an immature border seeking action. How can that be border seeking? Well, it's like sometimes kids try out the borders. They got a new teacher or somebody new helper in their kindergarten, and they try out to see how much they can make her accept. And so they start pulling her hair maybe, or throwing something at her, or not listening to what she says. And some kids do it more on purposely than others. And it can be difficult for the grown up to understand what's going on here. So many times it's like to seek the borders of that person that's around you or the situation that's around you. You want to see how the authority will react if you do this and that. And then you go and do it. Throw something out of the window, let it splash, and see what happens. Next time, splash it on the window. Third time, go and splash it towards the teacher and the PC or whatever is going on, and see what happens then. So some kids want to see, well, what's going to happen if I go to that limit, and what kind of reaction will come out of it. And some will find it very exciting, thrilling, and funny, and others will see, well, I do not dare do that, but I would like to have done it if I could dare to go all that way like you do. And so that impulsive action that can be immature because the kid hasn't learned how to properly ask for things and maybe wait patiently, because when we are together with other people, that's what we learn basically, to be patient, because we can't get what we want all the time, as if we were alone and could have access to all the resources. There's someone controlling them, putting order and organizing when and where and how and who. So they try to avoid chaos. And if the kid is not aware of that, that impulsive action can happen. So how to deal with that is also what we're going to get back to. And so the third one is the crisis behavior, that this kid or person is in a kind of crisis and acts accordingly, breaking the rules and the laws and the limits because everything is not making sense at that particular time they are in. And that type of crisis behavior is also important to be looking out for and to understand very well. And it basically is a kind of behavior that comes because of the teenage years. It becomes of the loss of something, when the world does not make sense as it did before. A lot of changes is going on at the same time, an inner crisis with yourself and your identity and who you are. Many things can affect that crisis behavior that actually oversteps the limit and brings that person into a situation of conflict. We know it a lot from stories and series and movies and from real life. It's all from real life that some kids, especially when they grow a little older, they try to do the opposite of what they are told. They try to overstep the limits. They stay out and do not come. They go into a fight on purpose, or maybe try to provoke it, or maybe let themselves be provoked by it and do not avoid it. And so that kind of crisis response needs a different set of tools than the usual ones, because you have to understand the person and relate to the story and have a talk. You're a bit into the therapy area just from your level as a teacher or helper or friend, and you need to reach out maybe to somebody who has the time for that. Most schools and places, they have some personnel attached that could have these talks, or maybe they will call on the parents and ask them to deal with that crisis situation so things can become more acceptable in the social sphere. And the way to deal with these type of actions and behavior is to it's called the involvement pedagogy, the way of involvement and the way of consequences. And that sounds very straightforward, as it is. That's why this model is good, because it takes you along saying, well, it's about involvement and it's about consequences. And I'm going to try explain it as well as I can and show the model for it later. But basically, involvement pedagogy is about the relation between you and that kid. You involve yourself in the situation with that kid. Why is he throwing the balloon at the window? Why did she scream in class? Why did she wanna create a scene? And so that involvement is needed. So you show your interest and you go into a dialogue with that person if possible. It's not everybody that are reachable, especially in these days of many type of diagnoses and so on. And so you have a lot of trouble maybe sometimes reaching in. But if you get that ability, it's important to start with the involvement pedagogy. And the second one is consequence. And here you use your authority and your understanding, that you say, okay, you either do that or the consequence can be this. Would you like that? If you do not do that, maybe we'll need to call on your parents and they will have to take you home. And imagine what you will get losing at home. Maybe they would not give you that ice cream they promised, or not go to the town as you wanted, and so on. And so it's all based still on dialogue, but it's consequences you're focusing on. The first one is involvement. Why? What's going on? What's wrong with you? Is there something? Why did you do that? Can't you see the situation has changed, and so on? And you want to understand more. And the second one is you want to say, listen, there are limits to this, and the consequences can be difficult for you to deal with. And in old day pedagogy, they had this as well, but they were more focused on the consequence because it worked and people could just listen. And we still have it many places today where they say, listen, if you cannot fit in, the consequences will be this and that. I do not relate to your personal story, go fix it at home. And still many places have this idea that you do not need to involve yourself over excessively in those kind of actions. But on a certain level, when the kids especially are small or are in the teenage years, you need to give more space to that as a way of doing things at school, because consequences alone does not solve the problem. And that's what we get to sometimes when we go to consequences immediately. We lose that contact with those kids that really needed it, and maybe needed to be understood more than to be blamed. So to go back to the first one, the effect behavior, one way of dealing with that is not to reward it, and not to give an unattended reward by giving attention to that way of behavior. It has shown that it helps a lot if this person is totally ignored. Throwing that balloon in the class, or maybe getting negative reactions from the other, head shakes and oh and so on, if this is not nice, and it will many times have that effect lost on this kid, that he wanted to get forward, he wanted to be the hero, the one who broke the rules, the one who was cool, and maybe get the attention of everyone, especially the teacher, and not if nobody's noticing. Well, that behavior is like the small baby crying, and you give it attention, and it knows when I need really something, I'm gonna cry, and when I cry, somebody will give me that attention, I will get what I want. And so the more you grow up, you will find that you are up against grown-ups who start looking through that and does not react to it, and so the crying will go down as older that you become. When you become 3 years old, 4 years old, you will start understanding that I'm crying here myself to death and I'm very tired, but grandma isn't looking, and ma doesn't care, and the teacher hasn't come yet, and nothing is happening. And so that way of what can you say, putting out the effect, it's kind of taking it down, leveling down, and then taking it out altogether by not reacting to it. The second one is to act proactively afterwards, or in another case and situation, and learn the kid, well, you needed my attention because you wanted to tell me something, or you needed the attention of the school kids. I understand that. Let me show you other ways, or have you thought of other ways of getting that attention and being held in good regard, instead of doing these things that really made a negative effect. And so you go into that kind of learning process where the kid learns another way of getting what it wants. Back to the baby, instead of crying, you could just come and tap me on the shoulder, give me a kiss, and ask me if I can give you that. And if the answer is no, well, you have to deal with that without crying, because crying won't get you anything. But mostly, I will be so mild and nice that I will give it to you. So this is the difference between this, and this is how it relates. And so I jumped into the text itself because I could see it was a missing part in that PowerPoint I had. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the updated one, but there is another way of dealing with this kind of behavior that was called effect behavior. That's the paradoxical intervention, and that's you go and do the same thing that had put everyone on edge or fire, or maybe reaction to that kid. So you go and take a balloon and splash it out in the yard, and everybody's laughing and looking at it. And so you take out the interesting part, if possible. Of course, if it's a breaking of a window or something that is not tolerated and can have damages, that's not good. But most of the time, the kids know their limits, and they know they shouldn't overstep them, and they know exactly where to go. That's the cleverness of small humans. They know that I can go to that limit, maybe exceed it a little bit, but if I overstep it too much, I can maybe splash a balloon with water on the window, but I wouldn't get away with doing it with a stone, crashing the window. And so they know the limits. And if you use that in a paradoxical intervention, you can take out what is needed in that case. If somebody wants to dance in class, well, okay, turn it into a dance lesson. Say, let's dance all together, and start yourself, instead of sit down, we are in the middle of something important and don't disturb. Let's go and go along with the that's called paradoxical intervention. And dealing with that effect behavior is also based on some models of what you call determination of behavior, and based on Albert Bandura's old work on these issues on bullying and other reactions in the human frustrations and feelings, that a frustration can lead to an emotional arousal, and that can lead to kind of anger. And if that anger is given into as a reward, well, that will lead to the expansion of that circle. And so at the same time, if you go and and do not reward it, like push it down, that could most possibly either bring on a higher and stronger level of emotional arousal and the will to get through again, or else it will put it down as is a failure that did not really get through as the kid wanted it. And so the second one, the one I was looking for as well, and I had lost from my PowerPoint, unfortunately. I know I have it in another PowerPoint, but this is maybe the easiest now, is to show it from the original source that, well, this model of involvement and consequences is also like a stairs. Involvement starts from 1 to 3 stairs, like you are asking questions. Why is this happening? What's wrong? You usually don't do that. Why are you doing this today? And then you give information. You want to tell the kid, this is not gonna be good, and I want you to know that this has given us something to worry about, or your mates are not happy, or look at what happened, and so on. You know the rules at school, and so on. And the third one is to escalate a little bit more and show what they call a professional discontent. I do not like the word anger. They show it anger, but it is a kind of, because discontempt is also a kind of anger where you show that I do not like this. And you show it by the way you speak, the way you react, the way your body language becomes towards that kid, that, this is not going to be good. I'm not happy. And you show it. You walk away from them maybe, or you try to seem frustrated and in a way very tired about the situation, that you are going to be sad if this happens. You say it with words as well. And that's professional discontempt for that situation without dramatizing too much. I remember when I was a new teacher, and maybe still sometimes, we have to sometimes adapt to how much of drama should I put on. It's like, I remember we had sometimes kids doing stuff, and then we were a group of teachers, and then we agreed that one of us should go on and say, oh, what's going on here, this is unacceptable, or like show the serious side of it, and the others would come, hey, what's going on, what's upsetting here, oh no, has this really happened? And we try to put that surrounding drama on the situation to contain it, and to make the kid or the kids understand that we are in a professional relation here, and this is unacceptable. It goes beyond and the borders of the law, and I'm not dealing with this alone. And then the second part of this way of dealing is the consequence of the behavior. And you have to have a clear way of saying what consequence there would be for that type of behavior. And if you do not do so, well, you will lose a lot in that situation, because the kid would not really understand. You will have to say, listen, if you do not really understand that splashing balloons are unacceptable inside because of this and that, then you will have me to report it. You would not like that. I will be forced to do it. Don't make me do it, please. Let's find out what you need, and let's not go there. Something like that. And the consequence, well, as I said, now you've done it again. I will unfortunately have to report it. And then you can adjust. Are you really going to report it? Are you just going to the door and wait for the reaction from the kid? Say, no, please, I will never do it again. Stop. Because sometimes the kid has to think over it. Is this person really gonna report me? And what will my mom think? And many times it means more to the kid that his mom and dad or family does not find out than the teachers really getting annoyed. So it's about, oh, this evening I was promised a new toy, and oh, maybe they won't give it to me anymore if they find out this, and they'll stop at the door, stop, get back, I won't do it again. And so these consequences has also to be worked out in relation and in understanding with the home and the family. And today we have big troubles in schools with exactly that the expectations and the actions are not coherent. They are not talking together. And so we lose some part of this ability to deal with the behavior if there is no coordination with the home. That, listen, I today had to tell your kid that if he doesn't do this and that, he will be sent home, and there will be a report, And so the family has to understand how this professional had been working on that behavior and ask the family for help as well. A very important notion here is never to take the consequences higher than the frustration level of the kid himself. Like, don't take things too seriously if it's gonna like feed the kid with a very negative self picture or kind of loss of trust. So don't exaggerate, don't get out of balance when you do this, and your reaction shall always be with a space for understanding. Even the consequence should have a space of understanding of what this situation the kid is going through. This is a very important notion. So we do not just go after the consequence for itself, but it's a mean to adjust a necessary behavior and not a mean to step on that kid or make that kid feel unworthy in any way. And then the ideas here are also to relate to a very aggressive reaction from the kids, because that is the worst kind. When it is solved, then everything is good. But if the kid or teenager will have the tendency to react in a violent manner and not really relate to your authority and what you're saying, or the response to your way of dealing with this, maybe you're just asking opening questions, and this kid or teenager lashes out with threats. You can see that this is happening by following these steps. You can see that this kid starts to complain, maybe, or will resist and say no and would not react to you, because he or she is already in a state where they are at controversy with the authority around them. And here is one more. You just one more authority they have to deal with, and they will deal with it by shutting you out, refusing to adhere to your rules, and not give any thoughts to whatever consequences that you are talking about. And so you will start seeing this shutting out reaction. You will be shut out from their inner mind, and they will sit stiff and like they are not listening at all. And then you will maybe hear some verbal attack or some words against you or the others or the situation or life itself, or maybe the school and community. And then it could escalate in some situations that you start hearing threats about violence, because the inner self of that person cannot take anymore or would not like to take more of this. And so one reaction is to be aggressive. And sometimes teenagers think they can be just as aggressive as the system and take it down. And they hate it so much that they want to lash out to it. And so that leads to sometimes violent actions, especially if you are not careful as a professional worker, and helps escalate things even more. So if you keep escalating and the other is escalating, then you will get into a clash, and you will become the symbol and representative of everything they hate and do not like, and maybe have seen as a negative suppression mechanism upon their freedom and way they want to do things and be. Maybe they didn't want to be at school in the first place, but they took themselves along and said, okay, I will get through it. It's only 1 or 2 years. And then things happens and you escalate more, they escalate, and it goes all the way up to threats about violence or violent actions. And so you have to be careful, both to protect yourself and the institution, but also to understand that the teenager and kid is not taken far out of their zone of understanding. Like when you see they're shutting you down, shutting you out, and you see words are not working, you have to use another strategy. And if they start escalating with threats and bad words and reaction of that kind, that means they are escalating towards violence. And that means they're gonna lash out at one point or another if you keep going. And that's where you have maybe to find another way to do this. And the way could be get a stronger authority or some help, or go to the authority of that kid or teenager, his parents, and make a report or file a situation case and see how it goes from there. And that's also to avoid really just wanting to make the authority work, and don't feel hit by that this kid is not listening to me, I don't have the kid's respect. That's not because of you, but it's because of what you represent in that situation, of what they don't like, the suppression, the authority, the fit in thought that many places, institutions of course, need to have, but it doesn't work well on everyone, especially kids with authority problems, or maybe uh, on the border and verge of tensions that they are dealing with in their life. And several studies have shown that there can be some triggers from you as a grown up, as an authority, when you talk to kids or teenagers, that escalates that level of threats. And this is when you give long speeches and moralistically trying to make them aware of their wrongdoing and looking back at your age and or attacking them. That's typically you. This is how you always been. This is the situation I've seen you 100 times in. You never change. You're no good. This will not be good for you. Nobody will put you into work. You will be a big loser, and so on. In that way, like going to escalate the reaction, because then this kid will feel, well, okay, I'm a total loser. Let it start now. And so you're going for the conflict in high measures by doing so that way, and don't comment on their personal hairstyle or way they walk or their friends, and keep repeating the criticism again and again just to show that you are right, because that now you are also on a frustration level because you cannot get through to that kid, and so you start in a direct way attacking them, making them vulnerable, but at the same time also escalating, wanting to escalate because you're the symbol of everything they don't like. It's nothing to do with you, as said, but about what you represent. And so the last one, the behavior of crisis, as I have shown in the previous presentation, this one from the studies of affect behavior, border seeking behavior, and crisis behavior. And so the last one I'm going to talk about today is crisis behavior, and how this model is acting and reacting to it at the same time, and trying to give some idea of how to deal with it. And it takes its groundwork in how we are thinking. It's like a neuro linguistic and a neuro cognitive model. And this one is a very simple old model that shows the neocortex, that's the upper part of the brain that is aware of the actions that's going on outside us. And then we have the middle level, where we have the amygdala and the limbic system that has something to do with our behavior and our feelings and reactions to things. And then we have the instinctive one in the basis. I'm not sure how much this model is true today anymore, and it is not, because a lot of more complex studies has shown much more complex operations within the brain. But this is to simplify. That's what models are for. They simplify something to give you an idea of what they want to talk about, that there is something going on in some part of your brain that has something to do with your way of behavior. And in this case, it's the crisis behavior, as they are talking about. And it's related in its way to what they call arousal level, low arousal and high arousal. And so there will be a trigger. You will be on a normal level, but what can you say, that border for your frustration border will be very low. Some people have a very high frustration border. They do not react to danger or threat or some kind of imbalances like that immediately. They do not go into crisis. They can take a lot and they can distance themselves, and they can act more socially apt. But some will be in crisis in life and will have this low frustration level. And so if you start attacking it and attacking kids and teenagers when they are in crisis, you could get that reaction out of them, and there will be a trigger, and you could be the trigger, or the situation at school or wherever you are, as a mother, as a parent. It could make the trigger, and it could give that high arousal. And so they say one of the processes is to learn how to keep yourself at the level of low arousal, so you shouldn't react to anything immediately and quickly, as it happens for some. And they give here some suggestions of several observations. They say, well, in one of the phases of that crisis behavior is that the kid will be restless. It will seem on the verge of like getting itself into something new. It's not really comfortable with what's going on. It's maybe trying to listen to the signals of fear, of anger, of whatever is overtaking it from the inside, and it wants to act on it on the outside. And you have to be very observant to understand there's something going on. This kid and this teenager is not the same as they usually are. Or maybe there's something going on that is gonna have an effect on the outside relation. And sometimes the kid will be signaling a kind of help. Something is going on, overtaking me. And this can happen in seconds, sometimes in minutes, depending on how old the kid is, how much they have of cognitive awareness of themselves and have the training to understand what's going on inside them. But this can happen very quickly. And so the kid seems to be getting more and more out of control, using words and maybe moving in the room or moving their hands and legs, and you can already feel on the body something is arising. There is a volcano about to erupt, and it's also the call sign for help at the same time. That's what we sometimes miss in all that. We see what's going on with him or her. She's just reacting, but actually it can be a sign of help that this, I'm getting out of control now, beware, or get out of my way, or do not arouse this further. So find some means to calm me down or to not escalate this further. And that's why you have to be aware of how you are participating to that further arousal without really knowing. And later, the kid can give you like ultimatums. Either it goes this way, I hate the school, I don't want to be here, or else I will burn everything down and I will do this and I will do that. I will run away from home, I will this, I will that. And then you can see that this kid is starting to be very ultimate, very much like determined. I want this, I want that, give me my demands. It's like a ransom, and you want to get what you want, otherwise you are threatening your surroundings with something. And that's all because of the inner inadequate control of the situation, and the work that they have been doing, must have been doing with themselves, has been lost or hasn't really been on that level where they can see that this is not going anywhere. I can't threaten the whole institution and people and things around me, but that's what they think, because now they are in the control of the fear and anger and the need that is inside them, and they have to show it and take over their life at least, and make the limits very visible, that don't get into my sphere. Here I'm in control. Maybe you're controlling the rest of the place, but here I'm in control. It happens a lot when the police are facing some people who went wrong in their life and they start reacting violently, and in the end they can see they are cornered, or they cannot do anymore, and they have lost basically, or they are on the verge of being taken over by something they don't like. Then they put that border around them as, here is my level, here's my border, don't go in here, otherwise you will face the consequences. Stay out there, you control everything else, but here I'm in control. And this is what they show you. And here it's necessary not to react, and not to take insults, and not to react even on very harsh threats, because the opposite aggression will only fuel the resistance, and will only fuel that we're going into a battle, and I'm gonna take you down. This is what you're saying, and you only do that if the situation is really, really becoming dangerous. He or she is lashing out for a knife, or have a sharp weapon, or is going to ignite some fire that can be dangerous, whatever. Then you can intervene if you can, and have the power, and stop it in different ways. Even the law of many countries give you the permission to do that, even though like we in Scandinavia have very strict laws about what we are meant to do and not do. And so in that way you have the possibility to go in and intervene, but otherwise do not go into an opposite aggression that will intensify the fear and the necessity of keeping that surrounding very clear and very much under control. And so the kid will go to another level in escalation, by showing omnipotence, that I can everything, I'm the strongest, I am the God in my life, you're nothing, I can control this, get out of it. It's the will that is screaming to take over, but is doing it in a very sick and bad manner. And so you can ask the kid to calm down and take control of him or herself and listen to the voice inside saying, listen, you are in control, this is your place, sorry for getting in there. Like, just do not escalate further, but try to get out of the situation, leave the conflict within the kid and within the teenager, and don't make it an escalation in the conflict between you, he and her. And so in that way drag yourself into that inner world of theirs that they really are not able to control in that situation they're in. And in the end, the kid will fall down, the energy will have been burned out, and the psyche will say, well, you lashed out, but okay, it worked or didn't work, or you got your space at least, and somebody listened and heard you, or nobody understands you, and now you showed that you could like keep the distance and let them know that they have nothing to say over you. And by that kind of satisfaction, whether it's true or an illusion, the kid gets back to a more normal state of behavior, that it begins relating to the surroundings again, and gets out of that crisis situation, not because it is gone away, it will come again later and it will maybe develop and become a more frustrating, complex crisis. But in that situation you're standing with, it will falter and fade away, and the kid will feel like a kind of hangover. It's like something has happened, and it was like it has been in a big fight, and things had escalated. And where am I? What did I say? What happened? And why have we been there where we have been? And this can happen a lot to in the crisis behavior as told. So to sum everything up, there are three types of behavior should be aware of when dealing especially with teenagers: the effect and the border seeking and the crisis. The effect, well, they want an effect out of what they are doing. When they get the effect, they do not do it anymore. The border seeking is to get the attention of someone, or to understand how far you can go, seeking the limits you are seeking. And maybe it's an immature way of saying what you need, or maybe expressing your fear or love even, and connection, but in a very bad and not really apt way, according to where you are, and that you have to learn. The third one, the crisis, is when the kid is in crisis of development or other feeling crisis inside them, and it becomes a problem for the surroundings and for themselves in those surroundings, and they can get this arousal if pressed or put in a situation where they feel there is no way out, or they are under too much control, or somebody is lashing out against them by making them very personally under pressure. And that's why professionalism is about dealing with these different situations with a kind of distancing, a cool head, and not taking it personally, and always knowing that you are responsible for the non-escalation, but also if things escalate, that how to keep it under control, or else get help, or in many ways just make sure that that kid or teenager gets through it in a way, and then later maybe gets help somewhere or other. That was the second and last part about how to deal with conflicts. And it was about in the schools and with the kids, as I have been educating on, and it's always educational also for me, who have known this and talked about it many times. It's so beautiful to get back to it, talk about it, explain it again, and put things in kind of perspective. And maybe I will take some special excerpts of this and talk more about a special situation or case out of it. I will see where that leads me later. Thank you if you ever came here and listened. I hope you got some benefit out of it.